All right, we will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the March 17, 2026 Salinas Finance Committee meeting. We'll go ahead and call it to order. Zoom webinar participation is available for members of the public. The Zoom webinar ID and link are available on the posted agenda on the city website. And let's stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's call the roll.
Councilmember D'Arrigo.
Present.
Councilmember De La Rosa. Mayor Donahue.
I am here. All right, we will go ahead and get started with public comment. If anyone wishes to make a general public comment on a specific agenda item, let's see. That's just the script. We are open for public comment on items not on the agenda and that are in the city's Salinas matter subject jurisdiction. If there's anybody from the public that has a general comment. Anyone on Zoom? Okay, all right. Then over to you on the Levin Act.
California Government Code 84308, Levin Act. Do any members of the committee have any campaign contributions to disclose related to any items on today's agenda? Councilmember D'Arrigo.
No.
Mayor Donahue.
No. All right. And with that, we will move on to the consent agenda, ID 26-080, minutes of February 17th. Is there a motion to approve? And I'll go ahead and second.
Sorry, move to approve.
Go ahead and call for the question.
Councilmember D'Arrigo.
Yes.
Mayor Donahue.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, very good. Now on to consideration items and Lisa Murphy on the Salinas Valley Tourism and Visitors Bureau.
Good afternoon, Lisa Murphy, Assistant City Manager. Today, the item before you is to consider a request by the Salinas Valley Tourism and Visitors Bureau for a renewal of two items, a lease agreement and an operating agreement. The city has, as I stated before, two agreements with the Salinas Valley Tourism and Visitors Bureau. The first is that we'll discuss is the lease agreement. That's to occupy the Heritage Freight Building located at Station Place, otherwise known as the ITC, Transportation Modal. The lease there has recently expired, July 1, 2025, and currently the lease agreement terms has the Salinas Valley Tourism Visitors Bureau paying just over $2,000 a month. The Salinas Valley Tourism Bureau has submitted a request to continue the lease agreement to stay at the location. They have requested two things from that, a 10-year lease agreement with the second option to renew for an additional 10 years. In addition, they have asked for a rent waiver, so a reduction of the rent from its current amount of just over $2,000 a month to $1 a month. And in addition, there is a request before you to consider waiving the rent that is past due from April of 2025 to present. So that's the first thing. The second item is an operating agreement. The Salinas Valley Visitors Tourism Visitors Bureau operates a California Welcome Center at the Freight Building. The way they operate, the current lease operating agreement is that they receive funds from a tourism improvement district, otherwise known as a TID, and that's collected through hotels. It's a pass-through. A portion of it is a pass-through, and we pass it through to help fund the California Welcome Center. And if you look in your staff report, you'll see there is a chart that shows the revenue by fiscal year. It has decreased over the years. And in light of that, the California Welcome Center has also submitted a request to the city to consider additional funding in the amount of $200,000 per year. That would be from the general fund. An agreement would also include the operating, the lease agreement, and then in return, the California Welcome Center would like to expand their marketing, their tourism, their staffing in an effort to promote Salinas as a heritage destination, promote tourism, bring visitors to the community, and also in preparation for what we eventually hope would be a train, additional trains to the city. And what I'd like to just remind you again, the amounts. So currently, the California Welcome Center pays just over $25,000 per year for rent in the location, and they receive an estimated $95,000 in TID funds. And the request is, again, an additional $200,000 from the general fund. The total amount is $320,246,000. And again, just as a reminder, it's for a 10-year term with the option to renew an additional 10 years. That concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Margaret, any questions?
I don't have any questions for you. I have some comments when it comes time for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, same. All right. Anything from the public? All right. Anybody zooming? All right. All right. Back to committee comments. So Margaret, that would be you and me.
Okay. I've been involved with the train station probably for the past year or so. Met with the board and went to several of their meetings. Been close to all the discussions about funding and that sort of thing. And they certainly have struggled. They've been working on what I consider a shoestring budget and still being very effective. The goal is to increase traffic through the facility as well as increase the economic development part of it, which I think, once the train gets here, and it will eventually be here, that's going to be a very important part of that area. So the main thing I think that's lacking right now is signage, and this will help them do the marketing and the signage that's necessary so that people actually can find the center and come in and explore it. It's a beautiful facility. They put a lot of work into it, and I'm hoping that more people can take advantage of it as well. And then finally, there is a very strong group of board members and train aficionados and history buffs that are willing to put up private funding once the city commits. So I think that's the real key here, is to get some matching funds going forward so that center can be really viable for the next 10 years and beyond. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to echo Margaret. I know this is to provide direction, and I think we do need to move forward on the basis of what you laid out and what's been requested. And there really are three moving parts. I know we're working to get in on top of being able to collect the occupancy tax. So I think that, number one, that's going to be helpful. Partially, it contributes to the things Margaret talked about. There is a group of people. This is not it's different, but it's not dissimilar from the soccer complex, that there's also a broader group of people and board members that are willing to make contributions, but they want to make sure that the city gives them the predictability and certainty that they can feel good for the contribution that they want to make. And I'm not going to commit them at this point, but we think that figure is, it's a seven-figure number to support the cause, but they need predictability and certainty. And then the other thing is an anticipation of the train, which is, we all know, will be here in 2014. There is now focused and concerted efforts to make that a reality, with Tamsi paying attention, a recent visit to Sacramento to the speakers, to visit with the speaker. But C. Monterey is expressing a strong interest in the train station. So I think there are a lot of positive things converging around the train station. And so, I can remember in my first term, we worked very, very hard to get this Welcome Center designation. And it was a big surprise to our friends in the peninsula, who we still have great affection for. It's something we wanted to do. It's been recognized by the state for their work, and I think we need to support it. And it's an investment that will pay for itself in spades. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend that we provide direction to approve the staff report and send it on up the line.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Hopefully it's a motion. And if it is, we can, it is an action item, so we can go ahead and call for the question on it.
Councilmember Diariga.
Yes.
Mayor Donahue.
All
Motion
right, good.
passes.
Lisa, thank you for the report. And Selena, you are on. We're going to talk about the mid-year budget.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council Member. The item before you is the fiscal year 2025-26 mid-year budget review report and supplemental appropriation requests. Staff recommends that the Finance Committee receive the mid-year report and also consider the supplemental appropriation requests. So within the staff report, you'll see that we divided it into 7 sections. The economic update, general fund status review, which is really diving into our general fund expenditures and revenues. We also have selected capital funds, capital project status report. Now, this is a result of the review that was done probably a couple months back that was presented to this board. We also have this year the opportunity to review our fund balance, unassigned fund balance per the close of the prior year, which is 2025. In prior years, we hadn't closed the books yet, so this time we do have that opportunity to look at it. We also have recommended budget adjustments and cleanup reallocation actions and the financial forecast, which we've updated. So, stopped working. So to provide some context in the development of the mid-year report, the following economic indicators are some of the things that we look at. We also look at regional and national economic statistics. Salinas is predominantly an agricultural industry, and the chart to your left is very consistent with a pattern of variability with the highest employment during the growing months. We also look at another good indicator, which is the local economy, which is the year-over-year real estate market activity. And as you can see in this chart, we highlight those values going up year over year since 2022. Certain revenue categories are trending above projected levels. And within this report, we did identify as the UUT, utility user tax, being quite high, and we are recommending that revenue be increased. And this revenue category, just continues to trend higher year over year after the COVID years. Expenditures are currently tracking at pace through the first half of the year, and that is also itemized within your staff report. Some recommendations identified in one of the sections here are also quite detailed. The city closed out the fiscal year 2025 with a surplus in fund balance, and that's going to be used to support funds that are generally in the deficit, mid-year actions, and also could help balance the budget, the biennial budget. So as I mentioned earlier, the capital project status report is also included within the staff report. And the $23.7 million that we identify is, includes carryover appropriations and current year appropriations. And staff is recommending that 2.3 million be reallocated to other projects. And again, it's all detailed within the staff report. And then also deappropriating $53,000 that for projects that have been completed or are not currently moving forward. Within the roads funds, which is Measure X, SB1, and gas tax, there is a 26.8 million. And this also includes carryover appropriations and current budget allocations. And staff is requesting to reallocate 1.4 million to other CIP projects to move them forward and deappropriate 15,000. So the closeout is important because that becomes the basis of the development of the new fiscal year budget. In this case, it's going to be our biennial budget. So per the close of the fiscal year, the audit report, otherwise known as the ACFR, there's a 20.4 million unassigned surplus. Now, I've summarized the table for purposes of the presentation, but within your staff report, on page 11, you're going to see it. You're going to see that broken out. But we start with that 20.4 million, and then we use some of the prior identified fund balance to balance the budget. And then we have these funds that have historically just not been completely brought out of the deficit. And so year over year, the city has, during the budget development process, funded them to a certain extent, but not quite enough to get them out of the red. And part of that rationale is there just isn't enough revenue to cover the expenses. So that brings the estimated revised fund balance down to about 14 million. And then there's all the other items that have been approved by council through the fiscal year. And that further brings down the fund balance to 11.4 million. And now we're looking at the mid-year recommendations, 4 million. And we're also, I'd mentioned earlier that we are recommending that we increase one of our, the utility user tax revenue category because it is coming in stronger. And so we're recommending that that be increased by 1.7 million, and we're also including another increase in there, which I can go into in a little bit. And now we're at the beginning and how we're going to balance 26-27. I'd mentioned those funds that are generally in the deficit because there are expenditures charged to the funds and not enough revenue to cover them. That brings our fund balance down to 2.7 million. Again, this is a condensed version. We do have a detailed, itemized table within the staff report. So now we get into the recommended budget adjustments, cleanup reallocations. The first item there, the 6.2 million, what you're seeing is those to bring those funds out of the red. And there's previously approved labor agreements and workforce allocations. If you recall, a little bit ago we came to council and talked about a public works reorg, and so that's included in there. The addition of new personnel, and this is through the mid-year budget process. Other appropriations, and we're also covering here the enterprise fund, the sanitary sewer. You may recall that those rates were increased, and when we adopted the budget, we adopted it with the old rates. So the expenditures and revenues captured those old numbers. And so then we go to the capital reallocation and supplemental appropriations. So there was additional request, 520,000 of additional CIP request, and some de-appropriations. And the reason why we note that it's up to, it's because expenditures are happening day to day. We're paying vendors as they come in, as the invoices come in. So all of these recommended budget adjustments are itemized within your staff report beginning on page 12. And we also have some tables that help you kind of keep track of the cost as you go through them. As part of this mid-year review process, we also updated our financial forecast. This forecast, it's a 5-year looking out. This forecast includes revenues, expenditures based on the information, the most current information available. And some of the things that we look at are historical trends for both revenues and expenditures, performance through mid-year, CalPERS, and negotiated labor agreements. And so, as you can see, in the event that Measure G isn't renewed, the city could be faced with a $47.8 million deficit. So we're going to talk a little bit about the biennial budget development process. We are planning to come back to this board to do a workshop and talk through all the details, but this is just a high-level summary of what's happening and what's happened. So in January, February, we released a community budget survey and had a community budget meeting. We started working internally at that time as well with departments to start thinking about their new budgets and helping them organize all their budget requests and into a 2-year budget. So in March, actually starting next week, we're going to start doing internal budget study sessions with individual departments. And in April, we're going to do that workshop here, just so we can all talk through what it means to put together a biennial budget and answer any questions that you may have. And then in May, we're going to have a study session with the Finance Committee, that first meeting. And then the second meeting, we're going to have a study session with City Council. June, we'll come back to City Council to adopt, to present the proposed budget. So through this mid-year review process, there were a lot of needs identified. And quite a few positions. I think there's 14 positions that are not included in the mid-year, but are all under consideration and in different phases of the review process. So as you can see, PD requested the deputy chief, a police, an evidence technician, and then there was a community outreach assistant, senior park maintenance worker, parks maintenance worker, 3 firefighters and 3 captains, a public records coordinator, a communications coordinator, and an executive assistant. Again, these are all positions that have been identified as a need and are being reviewed currently and are in different processes of that review. That concludes a presentation, and staff is available for questions, as well as all city staff is available for questions. Thank you.
That's a lot. Margaret?
Thank you for the presentation and all the detail. A lot of numbers to grind through. And I do have a couple questions on that last slide. You mentioned needs identified, but not yet approved. That, I'm assuming that'll be done by the end of this budget year.
It will be at any time. They're in different phases, so if something is completed its review and can be brought forward, that can happen. So there isn't a timing. It's nice to bring things back during, the bigger budget actions, but that doesn't preclude anything from coming forward sooner.
Okay, and thank you for detailing those. There was another slide that you mentioned, it's going back a little bit, I apologize, but $4 million in expenses, and now I'm trying to figure out where, kind of a little bit more detail on that, where that came from.
Is that the mid-year?
Yes.
This one right here?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so
Like
this
just
is...
a general idea, not detailed, but just an idea of the big items.
So let me bring you to page 12 of the staff report. Do you want to help me out here? Sorry, there's a lot of numbers.
I
just
know.
want to make sure I pull the
Thank
right
you.
ones. Okay, so page 12, starting supplemental appropriations. So this is what, throughout the review, the mid-year review, what was identified as a need in order to close out the year and keep our funds balanced. And so we break it down. There's utilities. Those have been going up, and we didn't budget enough. There's also a description of all of these things beginning on page 15. And so utilities is something that a lot of agencies are having to deal with, just higher rates. We have to pay them. And so there's certain smaller items. One of them is the budget stabilization account. If you recall, at budget adoption, we appropriated $1 million, and that was all gone through in the first quarter. And so there is a need to continue that so that if departments, and this is for all city departments, if there's a need identified, they would have access to this. Vehicle maintenance, parts, services,
Okay.
that sort of stuff.
A lot of everything.
Yes.
So
yes.
if I refer back to page 12 and 15, I should be able to
Correct.
get those answers.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I won't waste everyone's time with all the detail. The other question I had is you mentioned a public works reorganization. Mm-hmm. Can you give a little more detail on that? What that looks like?
So we brought, and I don't have all the details are in the staff report, but actually the Public Works Director is here and he can talk a little bit more about
Perfect.
that.
That'd be
Yeah.
great. Put you on the spot. Sorry about that.
So the Public Works reorg actually took senior engineers and made them into project managers. And so lets us hire folks that don't have a PE but have experience. And then they can work to their PE to flex into a senior position. But we've had a lot of difficulty hiring professional engineers in those senior positions. So we took that opportunity to reorganize and have these project managers, we called them division managers is what we call them. And so division managers, we're hoping that actually gets us ability to hire more people. We actually flexed one employee already into a position, which freed up his position that he was occupying. He was being paid out of class to do the division head work. So he got flexed into division head. So now we can backfill his assistant engineer position. So all these little things, when we fill those positions, will create positions underneath them, and that's a cost.
Okay.
Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't sure if it was, promotion from within or adding new positions, so that you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, Selena, question. So the slide that's up, so it's not unusual to carry over a couple $1 million year to year. So when I look at the funds in the deficit, 6.8 million, how concerned about that should I be? In terms of revenue projections or, you know, are we, and I understand you work on an aggregate and none of this is an exact science, but carrying to less 6, am I concerned about that?
So
No.
had we known, because when we adopted the budget, we hadn't issued our act first, so we didn't have a better picture of what the fund balance would be when we started planning 25, 26. So had we known, we would have fully funded those funds that we know aren't going to have enough revenue coming in, so that we keep all the funds out of the red. That's the goal, right? So it's not an issue because, in my opinion, and just the way things have been going, we're closing the books sooner, so we have a truer picture of walking into the new year. And so that's the benefit, and that's certainly our goal moving forward. And these funds are downtown street parking, stormwater, traffic safety, fleet maintenance. Some of them, at some point, we will work through maybe figuring out how to fund the funds outside of just the general fund, whether it's through cost allocations, right? Departments all probably need some of that, something related to fleet maintenance, so then they would be able to pick up their cost and it would be assigned to the department rather than just charged to this fund that's sitting over here. So, no.
Yeah, no, and I think, no, and I appreciate that. And the thing about stormwater is that, you know, that I still remember back in the day, I mean, at the end of the day, stormwater is an unfunded mandate that we have no choice. So how you get there, because there isn't a revenue stream attached to that. So I do understand that. The other question I have and is just for David. So this is simply mid-year, and the new fiscal year starts July 1. So even if we had a little extra walking around money, for all intents and purposes, our work plan for sidewalks, streets, et cetera, is really kind of set for the next four months. So that conversation is really for the next budget cycle, correct?
Yeah, so we design a project based on what money we have budgeted. So if we get extra money, we can always do change orders to the existing contract, but most likely we'll put it in for next year and expand that particular sidewalk project or road project. Yeah, we're expecting Abbott Street next year. I believe we have 12 million in there now. We don't know if that's going to be enough to do as much work as we want to do on that street, so we might actually try to use some of that money for that project.
But the scrutiny then, however we take a look at that, would really apply to the budget that's coming up. So we've really kind of played our hand for the year.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
If I can add to that, sure. David is correct, our Public Works Director. We played our hand for the year, but we will be bringing back an update to the council before the end of the year, so we can have the conversation and best prepare the budget coming in for the next 2 years. So one of the things I know Dave is working on with all the work that's going on and the added increases from this fiscal year is providing sort of a schedule where we're at and then what we have remaining and what we think we can leverage further. So I think it's important as we start talking about infrastructure, Measure G, and so forth to really tee that up before the budget. So there'll be another conversation with the council before the end of the year, before the end of the fiscal year.
And any unexpended budget that was appropriated will carry over for CIPs, specifically for this type of work.
Okay. All right. Any public comment? Okay. Any Zoomers? All right. Back to and so we're looking for direction to keep the process moving. Okay. All right, Margaret.
I think you've answered my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You know, a lot of detail, and I appreciate kind of the framing of the big picture and the ability to get kind of you know, closer to real time in terms of you know, where the budget process is and how we look at it. You know, I think that's one of the things I will just point out, and I think it's part of the education process. You know, I'm always intrigued when I occasionally hear local officials, and I balanced the budget. It's like, neat trick. You're required to by law. You have no choice. But you know, when folks see parentheses, they get concerned, and that's always the balancing act, because we are obligated to do some, you know, required by law that we're passing something that we understand will fundamentally be balanced. But parentheses are not the red flag everyone necessarily thinks they are, because we are usually carrying things over. So I think particularly as we shift to a 2-year budget cycle on the general fund, you know, we don't want to be glib about parentheses because nobody likes them. But I think I think that does need to become part of the educational process, that history says, and then the beauty of the mid-year process is, if the parentheses are real, we adjust. You know, so I think it's important that folks understand that, because we have a lot of moving targets throughout the year, whether it's negotiating labor agreements and, you know, those types of things, or things beyond the city's control. You know, we obviously, you know, that curse, may you live in interesting times, and we do. And these days that has a cost implication, so things happen. So just kind of just a general thought. I think the way you've explained this, I think it's important that we try and communicate that this is how it really works, and we're on top of things, but this is just kind of the nature of the beast. So good report, and
Thank you.
we appreciate your effort. A lot of detail went into that, so thank you. And you need some direction, or just receive the report?
Just received the
Received.
report.
It's received, and
Can I do a couple highlights?
oh yeah, as we close, let the city manager.
Yeah, so just a few highlights just to point out kind of the stuff that we've been hearing throughout the fiscal year. And let me give you an example of the art of budgeting. So urban forestry contract, one of the expenditure increases, $500,000 for that. That actually came through in the budget as a request, and we teed it up, but we didn't think we could get there. Now we're into the year, now we think we can do it because of the work that's going on and the things we've heard about trees and so forth. So now Public Works got a lot more support to do that. The other thing that we've heard throughout the year is, you know, our cleanups and our encampments and so forth. So that's another thing that this budget, if approved by the council, when we bring it to the next week, also includes more resources for that. So I think, Mayor and Council members, you're we need to do a better job of educating, but we also need to sort of explain kind of what it is. A couple other positions, deputy police chief and some of the work and our fire chief has been really good about Fire Station 7. So how do we get there? We don't actually have a physical fire station yet, but we are modeling what that would do, and the department's trying to do it with overtime fairly effectively, and you're seeing some of the response times and so forth come down. So now we're preparing for over the next 2 years to maybe how can we tee that up better with more information. I know I got the commander back there, but with the work that the police department is doing with the engagement and so forth and the span of control and all that's out there now, there's just a wider breadth of oversight that needs to occur in a department that's really increasing the community engagement tenfold. So the deputy chief now position becomes important, and our HR directors working with them on how to best align that. So when Salinas talks, or when the finance director talks about work going on, all that work's underway today. And if we can get it to you before the fiscal year, we won't be filling those positions on that fiscal year anyway, just the way the timing works. So I think it's just important to understand the nuance of a budget, that there's a lot of needs, but spread out over a few months, you can sort of get there with some intentionality. And so I just thought it was important to highlight some real key components in this budget that frankly, some of them were already teed up as part of the last year's budget. And where I've been hearing the council, the mayor speak to, okay, a 2-year budget, how can we spread that out over 24 months? I think it's going to allow us to really send a much more clear message. Now, of course, it's incumbent upon us to be transparent and send that message. But I just kind of wanted to highlight that if you focus on kind of where departments are at, we're right where we need to be 6 months into the year. That doesn't mean the world can't change tomorrow. You know, we weren't invading Iran 6 months ago, but we are now. So we don't know how that's going to play out, fuel costs and everything. So, so that's kind of the nuance here. And I just want to more plug at the finance director and her team were able to get the ACFR. I used to say audit, we don't say that anymore. I used to say CAFR, we don't say that anymore, it's ACFR. Hopefully next year we'll have this information sooner. So as far as we get to the 2-year budget, we'll be able to give you some more accurate information so you can base your decisions on.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you. Margaret, do you have anything? Okay. We are going to come back April 7th, 2 days after Easter. So, and before that, we'll be here at 4. So thank you, everyone.